Hey, what is going on? We are here for Horus Lupercal, the Warmaster. I've been sincerely looking forward to this, folks. Maybe after learning about 2 or 3 Primarchs, I was like, yo, we gotta make our way up to Lucifer, basically, incarnate, the man who destroyed everything for all of humanity. But you know what I've learned? As much as he may be the orchestrator of, well, I shouldn't say the orchestrator, because I think there was someone else, but I'm not going to get too far. I think everyone says hate the homie Erebus. Everyone on the side of chaos played their part into the destruction of mankind. Sometimes even the Emperor himself. I'm like, yo, why'd you have to do that? Why'd you have to say that? Why you have to banish all them psychic people? Actually, you was kind of spitting. But the thing is, like, back to the previous Primarch that we were learning about, and it wasn't Mortarion. It was, damn it. The Crimson King, the Red. God dang it. Give me a second, man. The Red. Magnus the Red. I'm going to say Magnus the Red. I'm going to think that's the name. Magnus the Red. It was a good thing, I was right, to get rid of his psychic to ban or limit the expansion or the use of psychic marines and stuff. But it's like, it's denying who you are, even if it's for a good reason, because it attracts the power of chaos and that seeps into, I don't know, your psyche or whatever. But it's who you are. It's your identity. So it's like, you want me to stop being me? Anyways, let's get into the traitor Horus Lupercal. I will be taking notes along the way. So if you guys just see me type in, that's what I'm doing. Let's jump into it.
Preparation for the invasion of... The road to Terra is open. The time has come for us to take the war to the Emperor in his most impregnable fastness. We will make immediate preparation for the invasion of Terra and an assault on the Imperial Palace.
Crazy.
Make no mistake, and it will be ours, my brothers.
Oh, as long as you make no mistake.
This will be no easy task, for the Emperor and his deluded followers will fight hard to prevent us from interfering with his plans for godhood.
Godhood.
Doubtless, much blood has yet to be spilled, theirs and our own. But the prize is the galaxy itself. Are you with me?
No,
the Primarchs
honestly.
of his Imperium would exemplify the pinnacle of human creation. Demigod.
Because I'm like, it's like, ours, the galaxy, is it not ours? Are you a better leader than the Emperor? Like, I just don't see how life is better under Horus as of right now.
Among mortal men, these titanic figures of the Imperium would lay the path for peace, paved with the bones of the enemies of the Emperor. Yet while each Primarch would be legendary in their own right, one would be chosen as the first among equals, and despite his favor, damn humanity's future.
Of course. That's what I said.
The Primarch of the 16th Legion, Horus Lupercal.
Lupercal. He has a epic name, though.
Much of the origins of the being, known as the Lupercal, would be shrouded in mystery. Yet what is known is that the Primarch of the 16th Legion would be spirited to the planet of Cathonia during the scattering of the Primarchs by the ruinous powers. A mining world within close proximity to Holy Terra, the harsh environment of the young Primarch's homeworld would be rich in precious minerals. Ruled by tech barbarian criminal gangs, the Primarch of the 16th would quickly adapt to the now post-industrial hive cities and barren mines, developing a rough, Chthonian accent from the inhabitants who influenced his youth. The Primarch would thrive among the violent gang wars of the planet until his ascension as a unifier of the disparate syndicates of the planet. Recorded by Imperial records as the first Primarch to be found by the Master of Mankind.
That's definitely a villain story.
For the Emperor to reunite with his protege. Swiftly taken under the wing of the
Emperor,
Emperor, the Primarch known as
him.
Horus Lupercal would be mentored in the methods of waging war and be privy to the Master of Mankind's plans to reunify humanity. As the Emperor formed alliances with the Mechanicum of Mars and began his conquest of the stars, Horus would learn from his father's conquests and prove a capable leader in his own right. Installed as the commander of the 16th Legion, the Lunar Wolves, Horus would stand by his father's side for 30 Terran Standard years during the beginning of the conquest known by history as the Great Crusade. Drafting recruits from the rabble of Cthonia, Horus would mold his legion into the sharp claws of the Imperium's war machine. Their namesake proclaimed by the master of mankind, the Lunar Wolves would strike fear into the hearts of the Imperium's foes. With compliances gained as the momentum of the Great Crusade continued after 30 years of campaigning, reports of another Primarch's discovery would soon reach the notice of the Emperor, granting Horus full command of the Principia Imperialis. Horus's first great test would be to continue the Great Crusade in the Emperor's absence. Proving his capabilities, Horus would continue to earn the favor of the Emperor, as each of his lost brothers would be brought into the fold of the Imperium. Yet with each of his brothers' appointment to lead their legions in the wake of the Lupercal, Horus would resolve to remain as the Emperor's most favored son. For 200 years, the Lunar Wolves would continue to bring worlds into compliance. Gaining the respect of each of their brothers, the deeds of their legions would not surpass the grandeur and glories of the vaunted 16th. Given opportunities to fight alongside his brothers in joint campaigns, Horus would combine the strengths of the legions in order to synergize and complement their specialities in warfare. A charismatic leader, Horus's legendary charisma would embolden the deeds of every subject of the Imperium, and furthering.
Yo, first of all, whatever sounds or song this guy chose for his soundtrack is fire, man. There's a nice little bass, and you can just feel the weight of whatever's going on. Very good sound choice.
Increase humanity's dominion across the galaxy. Engaging newly conquered worlds in diplomacy, enshrined in the cultural traditions of each unique world, Horus would treat with the new subjects of the Imperium in the manner befitting a venerable orator and statesman. Gifted and innate mastery of psychology, Horus would bring worlds into compliance, utilizing minimal bloodshed by exploiting the hopes and fears of non-compliant civilizations. Empowering the most virtuous traits among his brother Primarchs and the subjects of his Imperium, Horus would facilitate the utmost efficiency in deployment of the Legiones Astartes and Imperial army forces. Spurring the legions to ever greater proficiency and strength, Horus would sow the seeds of rivalry between rival legions in order to hone their potential. Deeds which would prove fatal in stoking hatred among the Legiones Astartes in the years to come.
You knew it was going to happen.
Yet despite the ever-nearing culmination of the Great Crusade and unity thriving among the Legiones Astartes, a singular overwhelming threat loomed.
Yeah.
The greenskin menace had spread like a plague among the stars. The largest empire of the Orc Xenos ever recorded had cut a swathe through the Imperium strongholds, led by their overlord, Erg. Rallying the Legiones Astartes, the Emperor would push back the greenskin tide with Horus at his side, as each Primarch brought their might to bear against the Xenos menace. Driving the Orcs back to the Ulanor system, the Emperor would end the threat of the Xenos before their numbers could once again burgeon. Deploying 100,000 Astartes and 8 million Imperial army soldiers upon the world of Ulanor Prime, the Lupercal would lead the final battle of the Ulanor Crusade. Leading his Lunar Wolves and army regiments under his command to distract the Orcs upon the greater battlefield, Horus would assault the great tower of the Orc capital. Alongside his elite Justaeran First Company, Horus would face the Orc overlord upon the peak of the tower, and after besting the creature in single combat, cast its body from the tower.
No, what the Orcs ever do
As
to
its
y'all?
great carcass crashed and split upon the soil of Ulanor, the Orcs would panic and be slaughtered by the Lunar
Oh, they
Wolves.
actually panicked.
The Lupercal had proven to be the catalyst for the culmination of the Ulanor Crusade and bested its champion. For his great victory, the Emperor would honor Horus for his deeds.
Of course.
Given the title of Warmaster by the Emperor, the new commander-in-chief of the Great Crusade
where does it go wrong,
would be
bro?
gifted the Power Mace, Worldbreaker, as his
That's
new
a
badge
power
of office.
mace.
The 16th Legion would be renamed.
You know what I need to know? Like, how is a mace... Actually, what? I don't want to bring politics into your world. There's certain things that catch my attention. Okay. What do I do? So I want to know about a mace versus like a sword, real quick. Like, I'm trying to figure that out. I feel like a mace would win because it's thicker, but it doesn't cut. You know, it would break a sword potentially. You know, a sword, mace versus sword. You know. Swords have greater versatility with the ability to cut, thrust, and slice, making them suited for wider range situations. Mace excel in delivering crushing blows, especially against armored opponents, and are more effective at shattering bones and breaking armor. Oh, swords can be used to cut, thrust, and slice, and making them adaptable. Swords are generally faster, more agile. Reach. Swords typically have a longer reach than maces. Maces excel against armored opponents by delivering powerful blows that crush and penetrate armor. Hey, that makes sense. And that really does a lot of damage, even with the armor on? Maces rely more on brute force than skill, making them easier for those with less training. You just pick up. I see. I feel like that's why it's common for large militaries to use like nightsticks or things of that nature. I see these electric maces in like Star Wars and stuff. Maces have a shorter reach than swords, potentially making them less effective in open combat. Maces are slower and less agile, making them harder to reposition during a fight. Maces can break armor and cause serious damage to armored opponents. In summary, swords are more versatile and require more skill, but are less effective against heavily armed opponents. That makes sense. Maces are better at penetrating armor. All right. My last thing is mace versus battle axe. Please forgive me. Mace versus axe. What we get? Which is better? I want that AI. A mace is prepared often against armored opponents, while axe excels at cutting and inflicting soft damage. Maces, due to their blunt force, are better at penetrating or breaking through armor, while axes can effectively cut through soft materials and are good for disarming opponents. Oh, interesting. Weakness may be less effective against unarmored opponents when we're talking about maces. The weakness of an axe may be less effective against heavily armed opponents. I did not expect that. Okay. Sorry for taking up your time. I don't know why that particular weapon caught my interest, but it did.
As
Horus.
The Sons of Horus for their valor, and bear their new insignia with pride.
The Sons of Horus.
Horus had proven his worth as the first among equals, and as Warmaster of the Imperium, lead the remainder of the Great Crusade with the authority of the Master of Mankind. Departing from the Great Crusade, the Emperor of Mankind would attend to his Imperial Webway project in secret, as his chosen Warmaster continued his quest to persecute the war to unify humanity. Yet with the absence of the Emperor, Horus would be burdened with his new mantle of favor, and begin his downfall from the Master of Mankind's grace.
Oh, this guy was really trying to work on humanity.
Uneasy with his ascensions above the esteem of the Primarchs, Horus would not be blind to the discontent and jealousy of his brothers. Though demigods among men, the Primarchs were not beyond petty rivalries, to which Horus would attempt to quell the dissent brewing within the Legiones Astartes. Placating his more volatile brothers, Horus would continue his father's campaign under the scrutiny of the many generals of the war effort.
Dang.
Yet despite his accolades and favor, resentment would spark.
It had nothing to do with the Emperor. It's his own people.
The Emperor had fled the Great Crusade to conduct an endeavor of the utmost secrecy, as the Warmaster's victories would be attributed to his father's glory.
Oh,
the
there's
newly
that
founded
jealousy.
Council of Terra would rule on the Imperium with no counsel from the Primarchs. Bitterness and resentment would take root within the mind of the Warmaster, to which the malevolent...
There it is. He is getting more and more responsibilities, but he's getting no glory. And they're making decisions without him. That's what happens when the most powerful person or most influential person also is the head of a military branch. That coup.
powers of chaos would exploit. The first chaplain of the Word Bearers, Erebus, would install himself as a confidant to the Warmaster and whisper conflict into his advisements to Horus. Subtle in his twisting of the Lupercal's morality, Erebus would enact the plots of his patron gods with guile and linguistic subterfuge. Manipulating the loyalties of the fraternity of the Mournival within the 16th Legion, Erebus would tend to their resentment of the Emperor's treatment of the Warmaster. Upon the moon of the planet Davin, such treacheries would unfold.
Crazy.
Once a compliant world, Davin had fallen to the clutches of the Plague God through the corruption of Horus's once close ally, planetary governor, Eugen Temba.
Eugen?
Armed with the Xenos artifact, the Kinnebrak Anaphane,
Yeah.
the plot of Erebus would culminate in the duel between Temba and the Warmaster. Horus would be wounded by the chaos-empowered form of Eugen Temba, the corrupted blade of the Anaphane, poisoning the Warmaster with an otherworldly infection. As Horus slew the thrall of Nurgle, he would collapse and fall into a coma. Brought to the 16th Legion's apothecaries by the Mournival,
Horus is really
administration
looking
of
like
the
a
Sons of
victim.
Horus's medical technologies would prove.
I don't want to talk over this. Horus is really looking like a victim. Like, he was kind of jealous. But this dude Erebus fell to chaos. Then his homie gets poisoned. I still don't see enough cringe in this backstory on how Horus changed.
Prove insufficient in restoring their Primarch. The Warmaster worsened with each passing moment as the virulent curse within him drained his remaining vitality.
No.
In an act of desperation, the Mournival would enact the council of First Chaplain Erebus and bring their Primarch's body to the Temple of the Serpent Lodge upon Davin's moon.
There it is.
Warrior lodges had already been installed within the Legiones Astartes by the Word-Bearers in order to further corrupt the Astartes of the Legions, to which the Sons of Horus were no exception.
Jeez.
Entrusting Horus's body to the Davinite priests, the
No.
Warmaster's soul would be delivered before the gods of chaos and become corrupted by the rituals and sorceries of the Chaos cultists. Horus's soul would be submerged within the Imperium and bear witness to nightmarish visions of humanity's future. The Emperor of the grimdark future would be worshipped as a god, and the Warmaster would be ignorant of his own meddling in this portent of humanity's fate.
Yep.
Portraying themselves as victims with no stake in the matters of the material world, the beings of the warp would entice Horus by fueling his long-harbored bitterness.
Poor guy, never
The
had a
spectre of
chance.
Magnus the Red,
There you go.
Primarch of the Thousand Suns, would attempt to sway Horus from the path of damnation.
Oh, he
Explaining that the
tried.
future he foresaw could be avoided, Magnus would beseech the Warmaster from listening to the whispers of chaos.
You would know.
Yet Horus's jealousy would not be abated, and with a pact pledged in the name of the Dark Gods, the Warmaster would accept the bargain offered by the ruinous powers. Slay the Emperor, and the galaxy shall be yours.
Dang.
Reborn as the champion of Chaos Undivided,
The champion
Horus
of Chaos
Lupercal would renounce
Undivided.
the Emperor and begin his descent into madness. Forming alliances with the Primarchs embittered to the Emperor, Horus would use his charisma to nurture the resentments sown deep within his brother's
There
hearts.
it is. Goddamn.
Bringing the world
Mortarion and
Death
Fulgrim.
Guard and Emperor's children into the fold, Horus would begin his great plot to overthrow the Imperium. Dispatching orders to the Ultramarines, Dark Angels, and Blood
Ultramarines.
Angels to the far corners of the galaxy on crusades to delay their involvement, the White Scars and Imperial Fists would prove too distant to influence the start of the Great War for humanity. Purging the loyalists within the ranks of his legion and those of his allies, the blood of the noble warriors of the Emperor would salt the earth of Istvaan III.
Istvaan III, it's
Despite
always
his
that
efforts to
place.
conceal his betrayal from the Emperor, fragments of the loyalists within the traitor legions would escape the Warmaster's grasp.
Thank you.
Knowing reprisal would be swift, Horus would enact commands to contain and convert the Emperor's legions. Magnus the Red would, in his attempt to warn the Emperor of the Warmaster's impending betrayal, ruin the Master of Mankind's Imperial Webway project and bring censure to his own legion. Dispatching the Emperor's children to attempt to bring the Iron Hands into the fold
I
and
misunderstood
manipulating the
this.
Primarchs.
He was
Conrad
trying to
Kurth
warn
into
the
fold.
Emperor, but he ruined the Webway
His
project.
impending betrayal, ruin and convert the Emperor's legions. Magnus the Red would, in his attempt to warn the Emperor of the Warmaster's impending betrayal, ruin the master of mankind's Imperial Webway project, and bring censure to his own legion. Dispatching the Emperor's children to attempt to bring the Iron Hands into the fold, and manipulating the Primarchs Conrad Kurz, and Alfarius to join the traitor war effort. The Warmaster's mastery of planning and conquest would prove invaluable to his cause. With the aid of the Word-Bearers and persecution of the thousands,
I didn't see from Magnus the Red story how it was, it was telling me, but I think I told you in that video, I actually was a little sleepy, but this video I'm way more alert. But Magnus the Red, when you look at the timetable, that Magnus the Red joins the side of Chaos. You just can't really understand at what point in relation to other events. So Horus has already started his betrayal, and Magnus the Red is still on the Loyalists. And he's trying to warn the Emperor, but he does something really big by destroying the Webway, which is the Emperor's great project. Pisses the hell out of the Emperor, and then Magnus the Red, who was a Loyalist, basically has no choice but to go to Horus or to the traitor side. Okay. With the aid of the Word Bearers and prosecution of the 1,000 sons at the hands of the wolves of Fenris. Persecution of the 1,000 sons.
Sons at the hands of the wolves of Fenris. The Warmaster's gambit would unfold.
Wow.
The resolute loyalist legions of the Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard would hurl themselves into the fray, and for their fervor, be crushed. Ferrus Manus, Primarch of the Iron Tenth, would be slain. Vulcan had been captured, and Corvus Corax had fled.
Damn.
Yet many battles lay ahead for the Warmaster in his inexorable campaign to defeat the Emperor.
I can't believe it, but I can.
Convening the conclave of the Primarchs aboard his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, Horus would address his brothers. With the exception of the Alpha Legion Primarch Alfarius, the traitor Primarchs would begin to deliberate their strategy to destroy the Imperium. Many of their number had already submitted to the thrall of chaos, and in doing so, pledged their allegiance to the ruinous powers.
Shake my head.
Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's children, had become possessed with a demonic entity, whilst Magnus the Red had surrendered to the Changer of Ways in the wake of the burning of Prospero.
Yeah, dang.
Lorgar Aurelian had unwittingly been a patron of the Chaos Gods from his worship of the old faith of his homeworld.
Didn't even know
the ranks of Mortarian's Death Guard and Angron's World Eaters, the presence of chaos had begun to fester. An assortment of renegades, pawns of the ruinous powers, and psychotic madmen would stand against the glory of his Imperium, with Horus installed as the favored general of the Dark Gods.
Man.
The Warmaster would task his legions with campaigns to persecute across the stars. The Imperial Fist Retribution Fleet would be crippled by the Iron Warriors. The Death Guard would attempt to bring the White Scars into the ranks of the rebellion, and the Word-Bearers would trap the 1st, 9th, and 13th Legions within a warp-devised cage.
Jeez.
The Tech Priests of Mars would wage a civil war, whilst the Legio Titanica, Knight Houses, and Imperial Army regiments would pledge to join or resist the call to arms of the Warmaster. 3 loyalist legions had already been broken beyond all hope of restoring to their former might. But the war for humanity would be fought and lost at the throne world of Holy Terra.
Would be fought and
Yet the
lost.
Emperor would not stand idle as his Imperium burned, and with the aid of Malcador the Sigillite, attempt to end the Horus Heresy before it could gain further momentum. Yet the Emperor would not stand
Malcador the Sigillite. I always see his name pop up. Now is the time I start writing him down. So give me a second. Perturabo, we got Magnus the Red, and we have Horus Lupercal. And I want to learn about Malcador. I need to learn about Malkador the Sig. Yo, that dude is like very important to the Emperor. Like this man is always by the Emperor when homies showed up around those times, and it's kind of like I know what he does, but I'll get into that character later.
Idle as his Imperium burned, and with the aid of Malkador the Sigillite, attempt to end the Horus Heresy before it could gain further momentum. The loyalists to the throne now stood at the knife's edge of the war. Severely outmaneuvered with the annihilation of the Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard, the loyalists would be put on a defensive footing. The Imperial Fist would fortify the throne world as the Shattered Legions fought a desperate guerrilla warfare campaign against the traitors. The Ultramarines, Dark Angels, White Scars, and Blood Angels were cut off from the wider Imperium, and the Space Wolves had incurred heavy losses from their persecution of the Thousand Sons. Malkador the Sigillite would begin his Shadow War against the traitors, whilst the Master of Mankind tended to the demonic incursions spawned from Magnus's destruction of the Imperial Webway project. The Imperium now faced its greatest trial, for it would take the
Imperium Webway project. I need to look into the consequences of that. I need to learn about the fallout of the Imperium Webway project by Magnus the Red. Yeah, because whatever happened with this Webway project had the Emperor out of commission. Like he couldn't even focus on fighting for Terra. And shout out to the Malkador the Sigillite. This dude is out here fighting guerrilla wars. He don't even look like a warrior, man. That's why I don't know what it was about this particular video, but he caught my attention. Like, yo, while the Master of Mankind, I can maybe read it, man. Let me. I want you to feel how epic it was in my head. And by the way, I'm probably not gonna be able to do it as well. As mankind's back was against the wall, as the Emperor was caught up fighting against the fallout of the Imperium Webway project, Malkador the Sigillite would begin his shadow war against the traitors of mankind. Like, that's epic, man. Malkador the Sigillite. I wish I could read properly. Siglite. Malkador the Siglite would begin his shadow war against the traitors of mankind.
Whilst the Master of Mankind tended to the demonic incursions spawned from Magnus' destruction of the Imperial Webway project.
That's my homie, man.
The Imperium now faced its greatest trial, for it would take the toil of every loyal soul to deny the traitors their prize, though one weakness could be exploited within the traitor rebellion. Should the Warmaster perish, the traitor war effort would collapse, for only Horus could unify such a disparate band of duplicitous degenerates.
That makes sense.
Dispatching the assassin Clades, Malkador would orchestrate countless missions to slay the Arch-Traitor. Yet with every failed assassination, Horus would be further emboldened in his cause to slay the Emperor. Contacting the Black Shields of the Fangs of the Emperor and founding the Knights Errant, comprised of the estranged and betrayed sons of the Legiones Astartes, Malkador would not relent in his attempts to kill the Warmaster. Recruiting former Lunar Wolves of the 16th Legion into his clandestine order, individuals such as Severian, Iacton Cruz, and Garviel Loken would seek to exploit the weaknesses known of their estranged legion. Alongside the Primarch of the 6th Legion, Leman Russ, Malkador would plot and order the Wolf King to attempt one final strike against the Warmaster. A kill team of the Knights Errant would board the Vengeful Spirit, and with the Lunar Wolves' knowledge of the 16th Legion, lay a path within the ship for the Space Wolves to assault the Warmaster's throne room. During the Battle of Molech, the kill team and their commander, the outcast son of Horus, Garviel Loken, would infiltrate the Vengeful Spirit. Captured and brought to the Lupercal court, Loken would face his Gene Father and be given an offer to rejoin the Warmaster's Legion.
He refused.
Defying his once noble father, Loken and his surviving Knights Errant would escape from their captors.
What?
For his battle brother, Bror Tearfinger, had lain Futhark runes for his Genekin and enabled a path for the future assault of the 6th Legion. The wolves would strike during the Battle of Trisolian, and with the aid of Braw, the rout would seek to slay the Warmaster. Boarding the vengeful spirit, Russ would lead his men to the heart of the flagship and strike against Horus. Wielding the Dionysian spear, the Wolf King would manage to pierce the Warmaster's armor and wound Horus. Forged by the Emperor's own hand, the so-called Spear of Russ would contain a portion of the Emperor's power and reveal the truth to any whom would be cut from its edge. Horus would be cleansed of the corruption of chaos and for a moment return to his true self.
Dang.
No longer a thrall of the ruinous powers, Horus would, despite such a revelation, choose to remain opposed to the Imperium. Rejecting Lehman's offer to return to Holy Terra, Horus would attempt to slay the Wolf King.
Yeah, he made his choice.
The rout would hold true as hundreds of Astartes swarmed the Warmaster and dragged Lehman's body from the battle. The 6th Legion would sacrifice their lives to save their Primarch, but at the cost of the vast majority of their remaining strength.
Man.
Horus had been vulnerable, and were it not for the hesitation of the Wolf King,
he would have
died at the hands of Russ.
It would have been all over.
Yet the wound inflicted by the Dionysian spear would send the Warmaster into a coma, to which he may never recover.
Not
the
good enough.
Powers would fight and clamor for the soul of their champion.
Okay.
Deep within the Imperium, Horus's very soul would fight an endless battle to remain in control of his being, yet his legion would not stand idle. The Warmaster's equerry, Malagurst the Twisted, would attempt a ritual to reunite his Genefather's soul with his body.
His soul is literally
Defended
astral
by
projected
Callus
out.
Ecodon, the twisted son of Horus would leave his mortal body and delve into the Imperium.
What a homie, by the way.
Finding his father's fractured soul, Malagurst would beseech his liege to return to the material realm. Concluding the ritual, Malagurst would impale the wound Horus had sustained from the Spear of Russ with his own Aphame dagger.
How'd that help?
Sacrificing his own soul for his father, Malagurst would succeed in freeing Horus, and once more install him as Warmaster of the Horus Heresy.
Horus Heresy.
Resuming control of the legions, Horus would rally the traitor Primarchs for their final assault of the throne world. Enacting the Battle of Terra, the traitor legions would descend upon the Sol system, reaping untold millions of souls as the defense fleets of Luna were sundered by the traitors' guns. The traitors would begin their infamous siege
look at all
of
these
Holy
weapons.
Terra. Days of bombardments would hearken the countless drop pods which rained from the skies as heretics, butchers, zealots, and warmongers descended upon the Imperial Palace.
Look at my boy Sanguinius holding it down.
Titans unleashed their fury upon the walls of the Imperium's dauntless bastions as billions of soldiers hurled their worthless bodies into the munitions of the Emperor's devoted subjects. Horus would watch as his merciless
worthless bodies into the munitions of the Emperor's armies. I love sentences like that.
Harrying of the palace brought ground for his men, inch by bloody inch. For the traitors would not be invulnerable from the reinforcements of the Dark Angels, Space Wolves, and Ultramarines, should their siege tarry too long.
And it will.
The Emperor's forces were giving ground as each minute passed, yet the traitors had taken many losses and could not hope to survive should they be trapped between the palace defenders and the impending retribution of the 1st, 6th, and 13th Legions. The Siege of Terra had stalled, and with the withdrawal of the Iron Warriors, banishment of Angron and Mortarion, and the disorganized Emperor's children indulging in their own debased atrocities, the Warmaster would not be able to breach the Imperial Palace before the impending assault of the Ultramarines. Challenging the Emperor to face him in single combat, Horus would lower the shields of the vengeful spirit, and the loyalist Primarchs Rogel Dawn, Sanguinius, and the Emperor would teleport upon the Warmaster's flagship and battle to decide the fate of humanity.
Horus knew
Sanguinius,
he was going to lose.
Primarch of the Blood Angels, would confront his once cherished brother and would behold the fell glory of the Warmaster of Chaos.
It sounds to me the Warmaster was going to lose, and he basically expedited his scenario to give him a 50-50 shot. But my homie Roberte Gilliam was coming through, and is the strongest Primarch there ever was. He was going to end Horus in a one-on-one battle, but he didn't want the smoke with Roberte. I see.
Bloated with power, should Horus slay the Emperor, he would ascend as the fifth god of the ruinous powers,
What?
alike to the birth of the creature, born from the downfall of the Eldari.
Wow.
Knowing his fate to be destined to die at the hands of Horus, the great
Wow.
angel would regardless launch himself into a battle to the death against his brother.
Wow. Here's that sword
Damaging
versus
the
mace we're
Warmaster's
talking
armor,
about.
Sanguinius would be unable to wound the champion of chaos, and in the attempt to slay him, fall to the talon of Horus.
No.
Finding his noble son at the feet of the Warmaster, the master of mankind would face the Dark King. Proclaiming that he would spare the Emperor should he kneel before him, Horus would bask in his delusion. Yet the master of mankind would declare that Horus was nothing more than a slave to darkness, of which there would be no hope of redemption. Bolts of psychic energy would spill from the Warmaster as he charged into a duel with the Emperor. Within the throne room of the vengeful spirit, the two gods of humanity would clash for the fate of the Imperium's destiny.
God of humanity.
Restraining his immense strength, the Emperor would be unwilling to bring his full might against his once most beloved son, and for his hesitation be
Cost him.
wounded by the Warmaster.
God dang Emperor.
Disarming the Emperor, Horus would gouge his father's eye, tear his right arm from its socket, and break the Emperor's spine over his knee. Gloating at his victory, Horus's dominion would be achieved, yet it would be the action of a mortal man who would deny the Warmaster.
A mortal
Standing
man?
between the Emperor and the Warmaster,
What?
the stoic soul would stare into the eyes of Horus and refuse to be cowed. Ripped apart for his insolence by the psychic power of the Warmaster, such an act of defiance would galvanize the Emperor's resolve.
This mortal
Summoning
man.
his remaining strength without restraint, the Emperor would unleash his full psychic might and rend the Dark King from existence. Realizing his folly for a singular moment before his death, Horus would shed a single tear before his soul was eradicated.
Eradicated. He can never come back?
The
No
traitors
demon
would
stuff?
retreat from Terra and be forever shamed for their hubris in attempting to usurp the master of mankind. With exception to the 17th Legion, the traitors would disband and fragment into warbands bearing no allegiance to a champion in the place of their slain Warmaster.
Wow.
The first captain of the Sons of Horus, Ezekiel Abaddon, would abandon his father's legacy and seek answers for his purpose within the tattered carcass of what remained of the
The
galaxy.
tattered carcass of what remained
Horus
of the
Lupercal's
galaxy.
lifeless body would be taken to the world of Malium and enshrined upon the demon world. Yet the ever duplicitous Emperor's children would, during the dawn of the 31st millennium, enact the slave wars as the
Slave
scraps
wars?
of the traitors fought over the dominion of their tattered ranks.
Oh my god.
Fabius Bile, chief apothecary of the 3rd
Look
Legion,
at this
would
dude's
steal
outfit.
the body of the Lupercal and conduct experiments in order to clone the Primarch to once again lead the traitors in their quest to destroy the Imperium. Yet as the Spider conducted his research, Ezekiel Abaddon would return to the 16th Legion and proclaim himself to be the inheritor to his father's failure.
They don't mean ain't no one gonna follow you.
Installing himself as the new Warmaster of Chaos,
Oh, come
the
on.
Despoiler would reforge his men into the accursed Black Legion and lead them to assault the Emperor's Children fortress. The clone of Horus would be released from its
Oh.
confinement,
Oh.
and Abaddon would look upon the reborn visage of his father.
Oh.
Armed with the talon of Horus, Abaddon would destroy his father's seal of office,
Oh.
Worldbreaker, and plunge the blades of his talon within the chest of the clone.
Oh, that clone was
Firing
nothing,
a
man.
volley of bolter rounds from the talon's Stormbolter,
Hold on,
Seal
I
of
gotta
Office,
see what's on his
Worldbreaker,
outfit.
and
Are those
plunge the blades of his
people?
talon within the chest of
Oh,
the clone.
heads. Oh my god.
Firing a volley of bolter rounds from the talon's Stormbolter within Horus's chest cavity, the reborn Lupercal would be eviscerated by the blast.
Dang, Horus.
The time
clone?
of Horus Lupercal was over, for a new warrior would assume the mantle of Warmaster and continue the 16th Legion's quest for vengeance.
Crazy work.
Strange is it not, that so many I wish besides me stand against me, while at my back are only the flawed and damaged. I am a master of broken monsters.
A master of broken
Slowly,
monsters.
He began to circle the edge of the great hololithic table, the sound of his footsteps lost in the echoing silence.
I cannot control them All their sons, and they know it. Mortarion and Perturabo and the rest, they can all feel it. They all know that this war is no longer something that can be guided, only ridden out. But they never understood me, not truly, and they understand less with each passing second. They doubt. They think that I have lost my way. I can see it in their hearts, the pettiness, the pride, the seeds of ruin driving them on, feeding the tempest. With such creatures, must I remake the future?
Yeah.
He stopped again
Angry.
at the foot of the throne and reached out. His hand closed over Worldbreaker's haft. With casual ease, he raised it up, so that the chamber's thin light caught every dent and scar on the polished metal. 1,000 battles, 10,000, 10 times 10 times 10,000, to bring about the new age.
I will
all the
do it.
certainties of the past torn down, all the beliefs that made them turned to ash. War on every front, stretched across time until none can know when the final blow will come. There is no disaster, for all disasters serve me alone. The storm rises, only so that the thunderbolt may fall. It does not matter how the galaxy burns, only that it does.
Only that it does.
Warmaster.
Damn, spin.
That is what it means, my brother. The
Damn.
strength to do what must be done.
But does it have to be done? Horus
This has been a tale
Lupercal is
of the
nothing
great
like I ever expected.
Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The chosen son of the Emperor would be manipulated through his misguided certainty of his strength. For despite his favor, Horus Lupercal would be proven to be among the greatest betrayers of humanity. Yet in my next transmission, we shall elucidate the architect of the Imperium's downfall, and
The
first
architect.
to submit to the clutches of the ruinous powers,
Ooh.
the bearer of the word,
Lorgar.
Lorgar Aurelian.
Yeah, Horus don't seem as crazy as I thought. So it seems like all the people around Horus, they crazy, man. Like, they got some real beef with the Emperor. They got hate in their heart. They got a couple screws loose. Horus just seemed like a strong leader with a lot of charisma that chaos just happened to influence, you know? He was out there getting glory, is definitely the most capable, but, you know, he's sharing his glory with the Emperor, and it's kind of like, but why? But whatever. And with chaos kind of talking to his ear, they did some, I think they did some ritual. Something happened after he got stabbed. They did something to him. You know, he just fell into chaos. I did see that when his mind was restored, he still chose to remain bad, even when he got stabbed with the Spear of Rouse. So it's not just chaos. I think they added that for a reason, from a writing point of view, to show he chose this. But he's not crazy. He's not insane. Everyone else is insane. And he was just the only person capable of leading these insane people. And I guess that just made sense. None of these insane people could lead themselves or lead. It just doesn't make sense. These insane people needed somebody else other than the Emperor. But, like, other than them following the forces of chaos, it's like, what were you going to do? What did you want to do that the Emperor was not allowing you to do, hypothetically? Magnus the Red, I got it. The man was trying to use his psychic energy. But for a while, he was staying very loyal. But after that Webway project went down south, it seems like things expedited for Magnus the Red to be into chaos, man. But, yeah, it's crazy, man. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So I understand Horus. I think I do. But it's just not anything like I expected. So, as far as the ranking goes, I don't have anything. I don't feel any particular strong feelings towards the story that I got with Horus. So I didn't really put him in order. I just added Magnus to Red, and I just added Horus because I'm not really moved by them, but not in any particular negative way. They just got interesting stories. But I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to serve them. I don't feel hype from a fantasy perspective, you know, that I'd want to serve them, or, you know, they're not a loyalist. So if you're a loyalist, that's just easy. Glory to the Emperor of Mankind. That's easy. If you're on the side of chaos, you got to have something that it's like, yo, I see what you got going on. Like my boy Conrad Kurz, man. People like Conrad Kurz will go after innocent people. You know, he's a walking hypocrite, man. This dude has some meat to his story, and I really liked him. Angron has some stuff going on. Yeah, what's going on, Angron? My boy, Fulgrim, yo, he has some stuff going on, like some mental stuff. Like, yo, this dude is crazy. Anyways, so not too much. Thanks for listening. I thought it was a great video, though. I enjoyed it. I was looking forward to learning who Horus is, but he's like so normal, but bad. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Ironically, it's just not what I was expecting. So thanks for listening. Hey, man, we're trying to get this channel to 20,000 subscribers. If you guys are taking the time to listen to what I'm saying, please also take the time to subscribe. Don't just, disappear. It'll mean a lot to me if you guys do that. So, hey, until next time, I'm Rock D. Lee. I am out. As always, thanks for supporting this channel. If you don't know, we do have a Patreon, and it's free to join. You can stay updated, suggest content, or vote on polls. If you're interested in our uncut and early reactions to anime, K-drama, Western shows, and movie reactions, which include exclusive reactions not found on YouTube, you can join the upper tiers on Patreon, or you can stick with the edited content right here on YouTube. We got Yaboyrocklee reactions also in the description of this video. Until next time, I'm out.